Hey kids, welcome back to Library Time with Nick. It's so good to see all of you today. I'm sorry that I'm on YouTube instead of live today. I had an appointment in the afternoon that I couldn't miss. So I thought I'd record a little something for you so that you know that I was thinking about you and we can still have a little bit of time together. All right. So for my kids that were live this week, I've been asking them this chat question. Do you have a favorite memory or just something that when you think about it brings a smile to your face? And I was thinking about this because we're going to talk a little bit about something different. We've been talking about kindness this whole month because that's our theme for April. But this week, we're going to be talking about poetry because April is also Poetry Month. And I was trying to come up with good definitions for poetry and what poetry means to me and why it's important in our world. And that got me thinking about favorite memories or things that when I think about make me happy. Because I think poetry is an incredible way to express yourself and to express your feelings. And as I've told you in the past, we always need to be learning new ways or practicing ways of how to express our feelings, whether it's through reading or writing or poetry or drawing or song or dance or computers or anything like that. It's good to have different ways to express ourselves. So we'll dive into that in just a moment, but let's go ahead and start with our normal library time routines. As always, we'll start with our 3 things that never change. Number 1, I like you just the way you are. Doesn't matter what's going on in your life, doesn't matter what's going on in mine. Doesn't matter that I don't get to see you live this week, or maybe I've already seen you live this week. Doesn't change how I feel about you. Number 2, I'm happy you're here today. I'm happy you're tuned into my video, even though it's shorter than a normal class period. It's so nice to know that you are there and that we get to have a little bit of time together. And number 3 are my expectations. And of course, I don't have to do my Zoom expectations because we're on YouTube. But I will say our most important expectation, and that is to be kind and respectful to everyone and everything around you. It's such a good feeling when we get to be kind to someone and when they get to be kind to us. All right. So I was thinking about poetry this week, and I asked all my students what their definition of poetry was, what that means to you. And I had so many good definitions come from different students. Some of them said it was a way to express love. Someone said it was rhyming. Someone said it was silly, which it totally can be. Someone said it kind of helped make thoughts and writing, but not in the normal way of writing. And I agree with all of those different definitions because poetry is something oddly broad and unique. For me, my definition for poetry is words that make you feel something arranged in a special way. Words that make you feel something arranged in a special way. And I like that definition because words that make you feel something, there's so many different feelings out there. And poetry can tap into all of those feelings. Whether it's reading some Robert Frost poems, who sometimes his poetry makes me feel kind of happy, sad, or nostalgic, or it's reading some of my favorite Shel Silverstein poems that make me feel silly and goofy and kind of imaginative. Or it's reading some of my favorite poems by William Carlos Williams that make me, I don't know, kind of calm and thoughtful. All different kinds of feelings. But it's words that make you feel something. And then I like the second part of that definition, arranged in a special way. And I think about that a lot because with poetry, you don't have to follow the normal writing conventions. Oftentimes when we're learning to write, we know that we have to have our capitals and our periods and our punctuation in the right places, and we have to have our spaces and our indents and all the different things structured in such a way. And that's good. Those are good things because it helps other people read our work, helps people understand what we're writing. But poetry can break all of those rules. It can be arranged in any way you want. I was looking at this poem by E.E. Cummings. And look at how he arranges the letters there. The words are all broken up in different pieces and fractured and all these different things. And you can still read it, but it's a little bit challenging. But it does kind of put a picture in your mind. And it's words that make you feel something, and they're arranged in their own special way. All right? So that's going to be our definition for poetry, at least in my class, as we move forward. Today, we're going to be looking at one of my favorite poets. His name is William Carlos Williams. And I like him a lot because he was one of the first American poets that really realized you don't have to write things in any special way. When he learned poetry, everything had to rhyme a certain way and had to have a certain number of beats, and you had to like rhythms that had to match. But William Carlos Williams, or WCW, he realized you could write poetry however you want. You could make things rhyme, you could not make things rhyme, you could structure your words in all different sorts of shapes and patterns, or just lines that made sense to you. So let's look at A River of Words, which is the story of William Carlos Williams. And then maybe if we have time, we can even read a couple different poems of his and maybe of other people that I like too. All right, let's get to the story. And as we're reading this book, look at the artwork. It's beautiful. You can see it got the silver Caldecott medal, which is one of the highest awards a picture book can get. And all the different pages are filled with these beautiful collages, these collections of pictures. And oftentimes they have words in them that come from William Carlos Williams' poems, and different themes that come from his poems too. This is A River of Words, the story of William Carlos Williams, written by Jen Bryant, illustrated by Melissa Sweet. And there's a picture of him right there. When I was younger, it was plain to me I must make something of myself. Like the other boys in Rutherford, New Jersey, Willie Williams loved to play baseball and to race his friends up and down the street. But when the other boys went inside, Willie stayed outside. Climbing over the fence in his backyard, he wandered alone through the woods and fields. There's Rutherford. And there's Willie hopping over the fence. You might notice Willie dresses a little bit differently. He was born over 150 years ago, so in the 1800s. So his style is a little bit different than ours, even as a boy. In those days, just beyond town, there were still many wild places for Willie to explore. My Willie has sharp eyes. He notices everything, his mother told the neighbors, and it was true. As he walked through the high grasses and along the soft dirt paths, Willie watched everything. When he grew tired, he stretched out beside the Passaic River. Gurgle, gurgle, swish, swish, swoosh, gurgle, gurgle. The water went slipping and sliding over the smooth rocks, then poured in a torrent over the falls, then quieted again below. The river's music both excited and soothed Willie. And sometimes, as he listened to its perfect tune, he fell fast asleep. As Willie grew older, there was less time to wander through the woods and fields or to nap by the river. In high school, Willie had classes and track practice and lots of homework. Willie is always in a hurry, his mother told the neighbors, and it was true. But when Mr. Abbott read poetry to Willie's English class, Willie did not feel hurried. The gentle sounds and shifting rhythms of the poems were like the music of the river, And as the teacher read each line, Willie closed his eyes and let them make pictures in his mind. And you can see Willie there. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Mr. Abbott's reading, and he's getting these pictures in his mind. One night,
keys were found outside. They have a periodic table chart as the lanyard. If these are your keys, they are in the main office. Again, top stuff. We have a lanyard with school keys found outside. Periodic table is the lanyard.
One night, alone in his room, Willie began to write his own poems. At first, he imitated the famous English writers he'd learned about in school. He counted the beats in each line and made the endings rhyme. The archer is awake, the swan is flying, gold against blue, an arrow is lying. Poetry suited Willie, and every night he looked forward to sitting at his desk and writing a few new lines. But after a while, he grew frustrated. He had pictures in his mind that didn't exactly fit into the steady rhythms and rhymes he learned in school. I've never seen a swan or an archer, Willie thought. I want to write about ordinary things. Plums and wheelbarrows and weeds and fire engines and children and trees, things that I see when I walk down my street or look out my window. So Willie tried writing a new way. Instead of counting the beats or making the end words rhyme, he let each poem find its own special shape on the page. There is a bird in the trees. It is the sun. The leaves are little yellow fish swimming in the river. It's a short poem, but it does make a picture in my mind. I think of a little yellow bird as bright as the sun sitting in these tree leaves. And then I think of fall, when the leaves fall down and they kind of drift. Something might flow through water. And he says, the leaves are little yellow fish swimming in the river. And it makes me think of falling leaves. It's words that make me feel something arranged in a special way. Now, when he wrote poems, he felt as free as the river as it rushed to the falls. Willie's notebooks filled up one after another. My boy is a good writer, his mother said, and it was true. Unfortunately, no one paid much money for poetry these days, and Willie needed to earn a living. Willie's mother had told him stories about her older brother, Carlos, who was a doctor. When our father died, she told Willie, Carlos's salary provided for our whole family. Willie liked the idea of healing people and of providing for a family. But could he do both and still write poetry? At age 19, Willie went off to study medicine at the university, where he met Ezra Pound and Hilda Doolittle and Charles Demuth. Ezra and H.D. were studying literature, while Charlie studied painting. The friends spent many afternoons together, discussing books and music and art. And the harder Willie's medical training became, the more he enjoyed the time he spent with them. When he graduated, he returned to Rutherford and hung his sign. William C. Williams, Doctor, Family Medicine. Every morning, Dr. Willie Williams filled his black bag with medicines and instruments and drove off to visit patients in their homes. And every afternoon, he returned to his office, where more patients waited. All day, he delivered babies, healed hurts and bruises, set broken bones, and wrote prescriptions for coughs and fevers. Dr. Williams is the busiest man in town, said the neighbors. And it was true. But no matter how many babies he delivered, no matter how many sick people he cured, Willie could not stop thinking about writing poems. On his prescription pads, he scribbled a few lines whenever and wherever he could. And in those precious times, the rhythm of the river he had rested beside as a child seemed to guide him. Like the water that sometimes ran slow and smooth and steady, and other times came rushing in a hurried flood, Willie's lines flowed across the page. After his long doctor's day, Willie climbed to the attic where he kept a lamp and a desk filled with letters from his artist friends and notes he'd made about them. And as the rest of Rutherford put out its lights, Willie took out his pen and his notes. He sat down, looked at the words, and shaped them into poems. So that's the story of William Carlos Williams. And let's look at some of his poetry. So he decided to write about ordinary things. And even though he lived a long time ago, his poems still stand up because they're things that we still see in our world. And they have a different structure than the poems he learned about as a kid. So let's look at a couple of his. This first one's called The Red Wheelbarrow. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater, beside the white chickens. I don't know about you, but immediately I get this image of a red wheelbarrow leaning up maybe against a fence. And there's mud and there's grass. And there's little chickens kind of moving around and pecking at things around it. And maybe it's at someone's house, or maybe it's like a small farm. And I think about that. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow. It's a very useful thing for carrying stuff. And I get this image in my mind. And it makes me feel kind of happy and calm. And even though I don't own a wheelbarrow, I don't know why that picture feels good to me. But it's words that make me feel something and arranged in their own special way. Here's another one. This one's probably one of my favorites from him. It's called This Is Just to Say. This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the refrigerator, which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. I like that a lot, right? He writes about eating someone's plums that were in the fridge. And it's like an apology poem. But once again, he thinks of something, he has a picture in his mind, and then he shapes the words to make that picture. So when I was thinking about our chat question today, do you have a favorite memory or something that brings a smile to your face? I want to challenge you to try and maybe write a poem about that memory. And all you have to do is describe that memory and let the words take any shape that they feel like taking on the page. For me, in one of my classes, I wrote a poem about my cat. It went like something like this: fuzzy little terror, black and orange, stalking me on the quilt. And that's when I think about my cat in the morning times as she like pads across my blanket and then like gets really mad at me because I haven't fed her breakfast yet. Anyway, kids, that's our time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It was wonderful to have you here. I will see you all next week. And make sure you check your Seesaw pages for the new library checkout schedule. I posted a correction today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, you make each day special just by being you.